We are the Unswitched Off team, and this is the first video of a series where we will try to understand the effect of technology on our lives. In this first episode, we will deal with phone addiction. Technology has evolved faster than ever in the past 20 years. There is no doubt that many sectors have benefited from it, from the medical, agricultural, financial one, to the more entertaining ones. This technology has given us access to affordable and user-friendly devices. In this tech-infused age, how is our phone usage redefining our life? We did an experiment by logging our daily usage and then analyzed our newly developed behaviors, such as checking the notification first thing in the morning, taking the device with us to the bathroom, the need to have it on you at all times, checking for new updates, etc. Could this be signs of phone addiction? It is important to understand that there has been a change of behavior and a new body language has been developed, and it is linked to the usage of the phone. By the end of this video, we hope you will be more curious about your own phone usage. Now we are going to share our own experience with it. Let's start with Serena.
Do you know how long you spend using your phone? Which apps you use the most? Have you ever checked your phone usage? Do you know you can do that, right? You simply need to unlock your screen, go on settings, and look for the daily usage. Well, here you can check how much time you spend while you're using your phone and in details. I mean, how much time you spend on social medias, to read, to text. Our phones know everything about us. Even our well-known know behaviors. It sounds creepy, right? To have a clear idea to what extent we have become overly tethered to our phone, we wrote a diary to review our daily habits. The diary enabled us to be more conscious in using our phone. For example, what is the first things that you do when you wake up? Well, for me, is to check my phone, of course. I check emails, notifications, I briefly check the news, and I text my mom and my boyfriend to say buongiorno. After that, instead of going to the bathroom, that's nature, I go on Facebook and I watch videos on skincares and puppies. And after a while, I get bored and I switch to Instagram. I prefer Instagram because I like to see pictures, I have visual memories. And while I go and check every feed on exhibitions, day science objects, artworks, suddenly posts of people that I know, especially people of my same age, come up. At this point, something strange happens in my mind. These posts start to create a love and hate situation on Instagram, between me and Instagram. So I shared this with my team members and I found out that I'm not the only one. How about you, Anna?
My phone usage is slightly different from Serena's. I've turned off all the notifications on social media because I find it's very distracting. Lately, I only check the social media once a week or even longer. However, I still find it's quite attached to my phone because I dedicated almost all my load time to news and opinions. This might sound a bit mad, but I read the news when I brush my teeth, when I have bath, when the loo, on my jog, from all different channels, in both English and Chinese, as I'm keen to know what is happening out there from different perspectives, especially since the geopolitical tension between China and the West. Each party has different rhetoric to serve its own agenda. Lately, I started to pay more attention to the financial and economic dynamics The inflation triggered by the government QE policy worries me. I used to consider it is a productive way of acquiring information, as I don't like my mind being idled. However, from the hindsight, by examining my log, I find this keeping my mind engaged all the time as a sign of anxiety. I'm aware the brain needs the free time to process new information and turn that into permanent memory. It seems that my habit of filling all my fragmented time is an instinctive reaction to cope with the time of uncertainty. It may allay my anxiety in a way, but it's not a fundamental sustainable solution. I think it is imperative that I identify and recognize the anxiety and allow a bit more time to let myself being idle. It is an effective meditation in a way. What do you think, Maria?
I appreciate how you can use your phone in a very active way. You use it to absorb information and keep your mind busy. Compared to Anna, I'm exactly the opposite, because I use most of the time my phone in a very passive way. I scroll through feeds that I don't pay too much attention to. This diary had made me aware that it is not the time I spend scrolling or I spend on social media, but the context instead. If I use it as a tool or as a displacement activity, it makes me feel bad or it makes me feel guilty. But if I use it to get inspired or to work on the phone as a tool, then it makes me feel good. However, this only reflects my situation during this pandemic, because I spend many hours at home and maybe I have the need to live through those posts as an escape. Before, I only used my phone as a tool to communicate with my friends, with my family, or maybe to use social media to keep track of my friends' activity. This smaller usage was due to the fact that I was already engaging with the life I was living on, and I didn't need to use it as an escape.
Like Maria, I found that doing the log, which for me was writing down every time I use my phone over a 24-hour period, to be a very simple yet very effective way to notice the habits I have developed using my phone, and more importantly, to question if those habits are simple routines or more like compulsions. I think I have a pretty moderate use of my phone, an average of 3 hours per day. Yet, I too, when I'm idle, end up scrolling away. I think it's the new way to twiddle our thumbs. It is very strange. Time goes in the flick of a thumb, and I wonder what makes us so immersed in this action of scrolling, and what do we gain from it?
So unlike you, Chris, I cannot spend much time without my phone, and our experiment reflected that. With an average use of over 4 hours per day, I spent half of that time on Instagram. My second most used app was WhatsApp, despite having a higher number of pending notifications. I noticed that I tend to mindlessly open Instagram much more, while I take longer to check and reply on WhatsApp, possibly because this implies more thinking. In a way, the experiment proved to me what I had been sensing since before conducting it, which is that if I were to answer the question if I'm addicted to my phone, I would say that I am. Why? Because of those mindless and automatic impulses where I check my phone, constantly checking the screen for new notifications, despite knowing that there aren't going to be any.
Well, this proves I'm not the only one. All team members use their phones in their own way. The log has provoked some reflections and questions. Personally, this experiment has shaken me to the point when I want to make some changes. So I started limiting my phone usage, and actually I'm quite proud of what I'm achieving. At the moment, my activity is down of 13%, and the last week I reached minus 35%. I literally stopped using the phone in my spare time, so my time on Instagram has dropped by half. From 4 hours and 38 minutes, I spent only 2 hours and 34 minutes. And only 51 minutes so far for this week, and we're already Thursday. On the emotional side, this less usage of the phone is helping me improving my sleep, to enjoying the little things such as watching chirping birds early in the morning from the window, having a good breakfast with a good book, and especially this last thing, reading a book, is something that I thought I did not have time for. I also have started to use my laptop more because nowadays they have similar features to the smartphone, but it doesn't have the irresistible or the forbidden fruits, as you want to say, aka the irresistible Instagram icons. Last but not least, I feel like my brain has started to work again. I mean, the process of thinking is back again. It's clearer. In other words, I feel like when I'm thinking about the situation or how to solve a problem, I feel more active in finding the solution just by using the logic of my brain.
The question we are asking is, are we addicted to our phone? But what does it mean to say being addicted? Looking at our logs, we do spend quite a lot of time on our phone. We feel that we miss it if it's not in our hands or pocket, and we are totally lost when it's lost. Because the smartphone is the technological tool that we use the most, we tend to believe that we're addicted to it. But researchers in the field of behavioral addictions think that the term addiction is very problematic to use in relation to phone usage. And yet, it is an informal label that sticks because it does point to the fact that there are indeed connections between the use of the phone and addictive behaviors. It is certainly true to say that the phone facilitates certain activities that can lead to serious behavioral addictions. So, for example, its portability enables discrete access to gaming and gambling sites in total isolation. This facilitates online activities which can lead to dependency and poverty. So, as mobile phones become more and more like portable computers permanently connected to the internet, the use becomes ubiquitous. But instead of using the term addictions, academics in this field of research prefer the terms problematic mobile phone usage, or in short, PMPU.
Both PMPU and PSU, which stands for problematic smartphone usage, are terms used by researchers and experts to refer to an uncontrolled use of mobile phones. Swiss professor Joe Billier understands PSU to be the inability to regulate one's use of the mobile phone, and it involves its potential negative effects. While the first studies that focused on PSU looked at the impact of mobile phones upon driving abilities, they soon evolved to analyze the patterns of behavioral addiction or dependence that are now associated with an overuse of smartphone devices. Some examples can be financial problems, sleep disturbance, and lack of control. However, there are also investigations that focus on the psychological variables that can lead to developing PSU. Emotion stability or neuroticism, sociability or extroversion, and impulsivity are some behaviors that can lead to developing dysfunctional mobile phone usage. Specifically in relation to impulsivity, the aspect of urgency is highly associated with the appearance of PSU. In Billio's words, it thus seems that the pronounced difficulties of high urgency people in exerting self-control in intense emotional contexts puts them more at risk of developing a problematic use of the mobile phone. So, combined with a struggle to self-control, individuals who make use of their mobile phones as a short-term coping strategy to deal with unpleasant emotions are more likely to develop PSU. And there's also the risk that with time, this will become their only possible coping strategy. This dysfunctional use can go from the need to call someone in a stressful situation or to automatically check the phone when experiencing anxiety, anger, or distress. Personally, during our experiment, I began to notice how I have these kind of tendencies. I too unconsciously reach for my phone when I feel anxious or stressed. For example, if I'm bored or I'm feeling unproductive, but even when I'm watching a video and it keeps buffering. At the same time, we find that developing PSU can have an effect on mental health, such as developing depression, anxiety, stress, poor sleep quality, and lack of focus, as stated in a study carried out at King's College London in 2019. The results of said study also showed that approximately 1 in every 4 children and young people have PSU. So how can we apply this information to our new normality, where our contact with the rest of the world has been reduced to the use of these devices? Mobile phones allow us to communicate independently of physicality, and this has proved them to be really useful in the past year. However, our use of the mobile phones hasn't been the only thing that has increased. Experts have stated that the pandemic has enhanced mental health issues, such as depression, anxiety, and social phobias, with leisure activities being reduced to the space of our homes and the technologies available to us.
When we talk about the phone usage, what are we talking about? The phone itself is rather like a tool or a portal. It is the content we access through the phone that draws us in. So, for instance, social media. When those phone app developers create a new product, they always add a social networking function to the apps, no matter if it's a film review platform or an online shopping platform. Because at the end of the day, we are social beings. Social media giants such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram have undoubtedly become a digital dominance. But why? Why are people so keen on those social media? Sociologist Mark Leary introduced a theory called social meter theory. What does it mean? Well, it's like a self-esteem system that monitors social acceptance to measure effectiveness in social relations. Or, I would call it acceptance or rejections from others. And here there's an emphasis of the relational value. Sociologists define the relational value as arising from a relationship with nature, including a sense of place, feeling of well-being, mental and physical health, and cultural community and personal identity. Leary categorizes the 5 main groups associated with relational value that are classified as having the greatest impact on the individual. They are 1. Macro-level relations, such as communities. 2. Instrumental coalition, such as teams and companies. 3. Mating relationships. 4. Kin relationships. 5. And friendships. The relational value affects our day-to-day life. If a person esteemed has relational value, they are more likely to have the higher self-esteem. Leary considered the self-esteem system as a way of gauging the quality of individual relationships. If one's relational appreciation differs negatively, one will experience relational devaluation. Relational devaluation exists in the format of belongingness. It sounds a bit tricky. I understand this a sense of belonging, the need to belong, desire for interpersonal attachment as a fundamental human motivation. In other words, people want to form and maintain a strong and stable interpersonal relationships. The sense of belonging appears to have multiple and strong effects on emotional patterns and cognitive processes. Lack of attachment, is linked to a variety of ill effects on health and well-being. Hence, in a way, social media is the embodiment of the social media theory. Moreover, those self-esteem systems are amplified by social media. This leads to some unpleasant consequences. For instance, philosopher Justin Tosi and Brandy Wormke perceives a moral grandstanding among social media, which means people trump up moral charges. Pile on, in case of public shaming, announces that anyone who disagrees with them is wrong, or exaggerate emotional displays. People consider this as a way to validate their identity and social engagement, which then enhance their low self-esteem. American neuroscientist Molly Crockett introduced the moral outrage in her book, The Digital Age. Moral outrage is a powerful emotion that motivates people to shame and punish wrongdoers. Moralistic punishment can be a force for good, increasing cooperation by holding bad actors accountable. But punishment has also a dark side. It can exacerbate social conflict by dehumanizing others and escalating the destructive turmoil. This online engagement, largely based on anonymity, makes people less accountable. This gives permission to post extreme contents and/or comments. All of this creates trolling, cyber violence, and anti-intellectual mentality. Basically, the result of that reduce any constructive debates, which create social polarization.
We have seen that people's phone overuse can have a negative impact on their social, mental, and physical well-being. Whether it's called PMPU, PSU, or smartphone addiction, this is undoubtedly an unrestrained behavior, and it can be easily recognized because we know very well how much we use our phones and if we're just using it with a practical purpose or just endlessly and killing time. So with our self-ethnography, we discovered habits that we were less aware of. Doing the log gave us consciousness of those routines.
Well, observing our own habits has made us question the relationship we had with our phone and what we try to compensate when using it in a passive way, such as doom scrolling on Instagram. Since doing the log, I have set an alarm on Instagram for 45 minutes per day. With the time remaining, I have managed to finish the books I have started, to look for jobs, and also to catch up with films. Also, being able to identify where I tend to fall into a problematic smartphone usage has made me realize that I can take back control of the time I spend with this device. Analyzing my own activity has made me aware of other things I do to procrastinate, such as watching YouTube videos aimlessly on my laptop or letting Netflix play the next episode.
Thanks to this experiment, I have started to change my habits and I'm making progress. Sometimes it is difficult to completely detach myself from the phone, but I have been successful in reducing my usage little by little. Actually, mornings have now become more productive. I enjoy listening to the radio and some podcasts, and oh, by the way, I love In Our Time. This improves my general knowledge and English vocabulary, of course. By changing the way I spend this time, I feel more motivated during the day. This has had a positive effect on my mental state.
Your dependence on the phone can be greatly reduced if you ask yourself a couple simple questions while scrolling the social media. For example, ask yourself, why am I doing this? What have I gained from it?
As we have seen, this dependency is in fact linked to coping mechanisms developed while dealing with strong negative emotional situations. And that people with this tendency are more likely to develop PSU. As we have mentioned,
This uncontrollable use of mobile phones is connected to mental health issues, which is why having multiple strategies and a wider support network can be a better approach. On the other hand, we have also seen those technology amplify certain negative social behavioral traits with negative effect. Indeed, this online engagement, largely based on anonymity, makes people less accountable. This gives them permission to post extreme content and or comments. And all this creates trolling, cyber violence, and anti-intellectual mentality, which result in a reduction of any constructive debates and create social polarization. Yet, during the pandemic, we have seen that mental health issues have increased with the rise in access to online tools. Technology can be our assistant. It plays an instrumental role in facilitating our lives by compensating for those situations which we are less good at. But we do need to be mindful that it can also become our master if we are overtly dependent on those tools. Only when we become conscious users, meaning less passive and more responsible, can we fully benefit from it and not let it control us.